Hi, I'm Beth, creator of dryitcanit.com. I like to share with you homemade recipes from dehydrated foods and canning foods. And today I want to talk to you about making an instant soup, ramen soup actually. And this is what it's going to be, a recipe without a recipe. In other words, you're going to put together what you want to put together, and I'm going to show you how I do it just to give you some ideas. So, we've all seen the instant soups, and they're quick and they're easy and they're tasty, but they have a lot of ingredients in that we can't even pronounce. And one serving of this actually has 22% of your sodium or your salt intake for the day. That's a lot. It's one of the reasons I prefer to make my own. Plus it's usually just a little bit cheaper. And today I'm going to talk about making instant ramen. Now I get my ramen from Walmart, but you can use any ramen noodles you want. And again, I'm not buying the cups that are already put together. I'm buying raw ramen noodles. They don't have any flavoring in them. And what I do is I cook those according to directions, and then I dehydrate them. And I have a couple jars of these currently. Why do I do that? Because ramen cooks really, really quickly. I do it because it becomes sort of an instant noodle. Even though it takes about the same amount of time as cooking from raw, you've got those great big squares of ramen. These are all now nice and loose, and I can add hot water, and I have a good product that I can eat and I can enjoy. If you do that from raw, your noodle will still get soft, but it's going to taste a little bit like a raw noodle. It's going to taste kind of gummy and a little bit floury, unless you actually cook it. Now, when I show you what I'm going to do to put things together, you can actually put these together, preserve them in little packages, and then put them in a pan, add the water, and cook it. You can do that. That's not a problem. For me, I needed some instant things that I could take on the road with me. My husband and I are going on a little bit of a journey or a little bit of a trip early next year, and there are a lot of things that we just don't know yet. We know we're going to have a roof over our head, yay, and we know that we're going to have access to water. We know we're going to have access to a microwave, and we're going to have access to probably a refrigerator. But in hotels, you have little microwaves and you have little refrigerators, and you don't have hot plates, and you don't have stoves, and you don't have ovens, and we're not really sure yet if we're going to have access to those things. We're going to be gone for several weeks, and we don't want to be eating out all the time. That's just not practical for a whole lot of reasons, not to mention that it's expensive. So what I've been really focusing on is what can I do to take with me that I can just add water and heat up. And one of the things that I've come up with is the ramen instant noodles. So I want to show you what I do today, just to give you some ideas, and I'm going to give you a couple of ideas and talk about a couple of things. So typically, I'm going to be packing mine in packets, and then I'm going to vacuum seal them, but not that tight because I don't want to squish the noodles. But then I have bags that literally I can pour, add water, and I'm good to go. I'm going to demonstrate though in a pint-sized jar just so you can kind of see what I'm doing. So again, I have my dehydrated ramen noodles. So what I do to dehydrate these basically is I break them apart, I put them in water, and I cook them according to directions. And then I put them, I actually rinse them off in cold water to stop the cooking action. Then I put them in the dehydrator. I put them in the dehydrator at 135 degrees, and they really just take a couple of hours. You just kind of take them wet, put them on your trays, kind of spread them out with your fingers, spread them out as much as you reasonably can so that they're not really stacked, and dehydrate them. After a couple hours, I take a tray and I put it over the top. I flip the tray, I take the top tray off, and then I let them dry because then the tray was wet on the bottom. It works really, really well. So you put as many ramen noodles as you want in your container. Now I like mine just a little bit more than halfway because I like to have the broth, and the noodles are going to expand a little bit. So I filled my noodles about halfway. Then you're going to add some flavoring. And I really got the inspiration for this off of the side of the packet for these ramen noodles. I'm not following it exactly, but you certainly could follow it exactly. I like to add chicken powder to this. So this is not chicken granules, it's not a chicken bouillon cube, it's chicken powder. It's kind of the same thing, it's just that it dissolves easier. You can get that at the grocery store, not a problem. I find a little bit more than 1 teaspoon per serving or per cup works out really well. For the 2 cups here, I'm going to use probably just a little bit more than a teaspoon. Actually, that's not even quite level. So, you know, like so. It's not a teaspoon and a half by any means. It's probably about a teaspoon and a quarter. And I'm just going to put my powder back down in there, like so. Then, to add a little more flavoring and a little coloring, I like to have some parsley. I happen to be using store-bought parsley here just because I happen to have this at this particular location and I don't have some of my dried, but just a sprinkling, a handful, whatever you want to do there is just fine. Onion powder and garlic powder are really good, but I only have onion powder today. So I'm going to add not quite, about 3/4 of a teaspoon of onion powder. If I had garlic powder, I would probably do not quite a 1/2 teaspoon of onion powder and about a 1/2 teaspoon of garlic powder. Now, I'm also going to add some dehydrated chicken. I want to talk to you about dehydrated meat for a minute. You can safely dehydrate most meats, in this case chicken. But here's the thing, here's what I'm finding out, and I've learned this from reading online actually, but I've tested it as well. With chicken, if you take baked chicken or cooked chicken or barbecue chicken and dehydrate it, it will dehydrate, but it does not rehydrate well. It stays really kind of hard. However, if you used canned chicken, which is what this is today, or if you have pressure cooked chicken, it actually rehydrates really well. Canned chicken is going to be pressure cooked. And why does pressure cooked chicken work better than baked chicken or whatever? I don't know, other than when you're canning, your temperatures are getting higher, so it must break it down a little bit better. When you have dehydrated meats, whether it's ground beef, and there's ways to do that, and I don't want to get into all that today, but if you're going to dehydrate meat, you're going to want to follow carefully how you do that. You're going to want to dehydrate that at 145 degrees, and you never dehydrate your meat raw unless you're doing jerky. So you always use cooked meat. Dehydrated meat you can store safely for maybe 1 or 2 months, but that's really about it. After that, it might go rancid. So when you're doing something and putting meat in it, if you're not going to be using it within that 1 to 2 month period, you should store it in your freezer or in your refrigerator. I'm going to be using mine within the next month, so I'm not going to worry about putting mine in the freezer. And I really prepared it for the purposes of taking with us on our adventure. So I'm taking a good tablespoon and adding that to what I have. Now, at this point, what I want to do is add hot boiling water to it. And I have to get my water heated because I forgot to get the kettle heated up. So bear with me while I heat the water and I'll be right back. I have my boiling water and I am going to add that as simple as this. Now, what I'm going to need to do here, and I like to have just enough water to cover the noodles, is this needs to sit for 8 to 10 minutes so that the noodles get to the consistency that I like. So logically you might be saying, well, why don't I just boil my noodles and put the stuff in the pan and it's just as fast? It is, and you definitely can do that. But we're not always at a place where we can do that, where we don't always have a stove. And this is where this is really good, it becomes really portable. The other thing that I'm going to be doing when I add my packages is I have packages of dehydrated peas and carrots. These are from actually October of 2022, and I want to use them up because they're a year old. But this gives me more nutrition in my bowl. However, when I'm dehydrating peas and carrots, those take a good 20 minutes or so to do. For me, that's really not an issue for what we're going to be doing because I'm going to be packaging my stuff up. I'm going to be putting it in packages like this, although they won't be fully compressed so that the noodles don't get compressed. I'm going to be dumping them in a little bit of a what do you want to call that, a thermos, and adding hot water and then taking it with me, and then I'll be able to have lunch when I'm ready because this will be hot and my vegetables will be dehydrated, or rehydrated, I should say. So here's what I'm trying to show you today is that you can take noodles, you can take and cook them, dehydrate them, and then rehydrate them, and make instant soups for yourself. They're healthier than these. You know exactly what's in them. You can put in them what you want to put in them. And they're really quick and easy. They're good for camping. They're good for going to work. They're good for your kids' school lunches if you can put some kind of a thermos in their lunch. You absolutely can do what's called a cold soak with these, where you put all your ingredients together and add cold water and then let that sit overnight. That usually works best. If you put cold water in the morning, you could probably have it for around dinner time, but it probably would still be a little bit crunchy if you had it at regular lunchtime. So there is an advantage to cooking your noodles. There is an advantage to working with these. I have some things that I'm working on with, like a tuna cheese macaroni that will be instant, that I hope to be posting in the next week or so. But instant soup, instant ramen. Think about what you can put together. This is why I'm calling it a recipe without a recipe, because you really put in together what you do. Meats, I'm going to be doing some dehydrated meat videos in the near future. It's definitely something that you want to pay a little bit closer attention to. Again, if you're going to store these long term, you want to make sure that you freeze these. But the USDA says that if you properly dehydrate these, you can make them shelf stable for 1 to 2 months. So I hope you learned something today. I hope I gave you something to think about. I hope you think about trying this. It's hot. I'm going to enjoy mine for lunch in just a little bit. Fill your jars all the way up with noodles if you want. You can see how the noodles are getting plump already. They're not quite ready for me to eat now, but I sure would appreciate if you'd subscribe to my channel. You can click the subscribe button in the lower right corner. Hit the like a video if you like this video, if you learned something that lets me know that you want to see maybe more things like this. So in the meantime, thank you for watching. Happy dehydrating.